Vox seal engaged. Data sanctified. Across the stars, there are few powers greater than faith. Not the strength of fleets, not the fire of 1,000,000 regiments. It is belief that binds the Imperium together. Belief in the Emperor, in his divine protection, and in the destiny of mankind. This is the Imperial Creed. To the faithful, it is salvation. To the Imperium, it is structure. Without it, there is no unity, no order, no light in the void. This transmission will examine the Creed's origin, its reach, and its role in holding together an empire too vast to rule by force alone. It is a faith that comforts, controls, and commands in equal measure. The Imperial Creed was not born in a single moment. It grew slowly in the centuries between the Emperor's rise on Terra and the long age that followed his ascension to the Golden Throne. During the Great Crusade, the Emperor rejected religion. He sought to unite humanity through reason and conquest, not prayer. In his vision, there was no place for gods. But to many, the Emperor himself became something more than a ruler. His victories, his power, his image, they inspired awe that logic could not contain. After the heresy, that awe hardened into worship. With the Emperor immobile upon the throne, distant and unseen, faith filled the silence. Priests and prophets rose from among the masses. Local cults emerged on countless worlds, each exalting the Emperor in their own way. Their voices differed, but their message was the same. The Emperor was divine. Over time, these scattered beliefs were gathered and shaped into a single doctrine. This was the work of the Ecclesiarchy, or Adeptus Ministorum, an institution forged to give structure to faith and to bring the Emperor's worship under imperial control. In their hands, reverence became law. The creed spread not by chance, but by design. Preachers carried it to every world, missionaries built shrines, and the faithful wove its rituals into daily life. Even distant planets where imperial armies rarely marched learned to kneel before the Golden Throne. What began as scattered devotion became a unified faith, and what began as reverence became an instrument of governance. The Imperial Creed is not an idea carried by whispers. It is a structured faith, a machine in its own right, maintained by a vast institution that spans the Imperium. This institution is the Ecclesiarchy, known formally as the Adeptus Ministorum. From its seat on Terra, the Ecclesiarchy directs the worship of the God Emperor across millions of worlds. Cardinals oversee entire regions of the galaxy. Missionaries and confessors travel from world to spread the word and ensure obedience. Each world, no matter how remote, is expected to uphold the creed. Cathedrals are raised in the center of cities. Shrines and chapels line roads, docks, and have-blocks. On some worlds, these structures outnumber homes. They are places of worship, but also of surveillance. The faithful gather, and the Ministorum listens. Priests are not merely spiritual guides. They are extensions of imperial authority. Confessors travel with regiments to remind soldiers why they fight. Missionaries step onto frontier worlds to sow the first seeds of devotion. Cardinals hold power, not unlike planetary governors, and in some places, more. Faith is woven into the daily rhythms of imperial life. In the morning, workers chant the litany of labor. Before battle, soldiers hear the benediction of the throne. In death, names are committed to the Emperor's light. These acts are not optional. They are the pulse of imperial society. The Ecclesiarchy controls language, symbolism, and ritual. The Emperor is depicted not as a distant sovereign, but as a divine protector, eternal, infallible, and watching. Statues line every street. Candles burn at every shrine. Even those who doubt learn the litanies by heart. Through this structure, the Creed achieves what force alone cannot. It reaches the citizen, the worker, the soldier, the outcast. No bureaucracy could bind such a vast empire, but faith can. The Imperial Creed is often spoken of as a faith, but its true strength lies in its function. It does not simply offer comfort, it gives the Imperium a single unifying language of obedience. Across 1,000,000 worlds, there are cultures that share no history, no blood, no voice. They do not speak the same tongue. They do not see the same stars, but they all kneel to the same throne. That shared faith allows the Imperium to speak to its subjects with one voice. It is no accident. The Ministorum embeds its presence into the fabric of daily life. Prayers before labor, blessings over water rations, sermons broadcast into the lower halves. Even those who never see a priest are never beyond the reach of the Creed. Faith serves where soldiers cannot. It reaches worlds too distant for the administratum, too costly for the Astra Militarum to garrison. It makes loyalty an instinct, not a calculation. When an edict comes in the Emperor's name, it is not received as policy, it is received as divine will. The Creed provides certainty in a galaxy that has none. It tells the citizen who to fear, who to love, and who to obey. It frames survival as faith, and faith as duty. For most, it is not questioned. It is simply the way the universe works. The Imperium understands the power of shared myth. Fear may keep a world silent for a time. Faith makes it obedient for generations. Even those who doubt it rarely act on it. The rituals surround them from birth to death. To question the Creed is to stand apart from one's own world, and few survive that kind of exile. And so, faith becomes armor, not for the individual, but for the state. This is why the Creed endures. It does not require every citizen to believe. It requires them to participate, to light the candles, to bow their heads, to repeat the words. In that repetition lies control. The Imperial Creed is unified in name, but in truth it is a constellation of beliefs. Each world interprets the Emperor through the lens of its own history, culture, and fear. In the eyes of the Ministorum, these differences are acceptable, so long as they lead to the same conclusion. The Emperor is divine, and his will is law. On shrine worlds, faith is absolute. Entire populations dedicate their lives to prayer and pilgrimage. In hive cities, faith is woven into survival, a constant presence amid rust and ash. On frontier colonies, sermons are simple and pragmatic. Obedience to the throne means protection from the void. But faith, once scattered, is never entirely controllable. Some worlds exalt the Emperor as a distant god, radiant and untouchable. Others speak of him as a living spirit that walks among them. A few elevate saints and heroes until they overshadow the throne itself. The Ecclesiarchy allows small deviations to maintain stability, but there is a point where variation becomes divergence, and divergence, in the eyes of the Imperium, is heresy. Heresy can grow in many forms. A preacher who places a local saint above the Emperor, a sect that claims divine visions not sanctioned by Terra, a planetary governor who bends the Creed to justify rebellion. Each of these fractures begins as a whisper. Left unchecked, they become wars. To combat this, the Ministorum relies on two powers. The first is the Ordo Hereticus, the Inquisition's hammer against internal threats. The second is the Adepta Sorestaris, the Sisters of Battle, a militant order born from fire and schism. Together, they root out deviation and erase it before it spreads. But even with fire and fear, the Imperium cannot silence every voice. New sects rise in the shadows of old cathedrals. Some fade quietly, others ignite entire sectors. The Creed is both a shield and a fault line. It unites the Imperium, but its fractures can be as dangerous as any Xenos incursion. In the grim darkness of the far future, faith is never truly uniform. It is only ever managed. The Imperial Creed is not confined to the walls of its cathedrals. It travels with the armies of the Imperium, woven into the rhythm of war. Faith is the mortar that binds Imperial soldiers to their cause, even when logic has long abandoned the field. Before every campaign, regiments gather beneath banners bearing the Emperor's sigil. Confessors deliver sermons. Missionaries speak of divine duty. To march beneath the Aquila is to believe, or at least to act as if belief were beyond question. Faith turns war into something more than strategy. It becomes pilgrimage, crusade, holy duty. When a guardsman dies on a distant front, their death is framed as a sacrifice to the throne. Their body may be forgotten, their faith is not. No weapon spreads the creed faster than war. When Imperial forces conquer a world, the first structures raised are not barracks or manufactoria, but shrines. Chapels follow the regiments, sermons follow the gunfire. Faith arrives alongside the armies that enforce it. Among the most fervent are the Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. Unlike most Imperial soldiers, their devotion is total. To them, war is prayer made manifest. Every bolter shell is a hymn, every flame a benediction. They do not fight for territory, they fight for faith. The Adeptus Ministerium uses these armies as both sword and symbol. Their presence inspires loyalty in the faithful and terror in those who waver. A regiment may falter, a zealot rarely does. The Creed gives Imperial war its shape. It justifies cruelty. It sanctifies endurance. It turns survival into holy cause. And as long as humanity wages war, the Creed will march with it. The Imperial Creed is more than worship. It is the foundation upon which the Imperium stands. It binds worlds that will never meet, unites armies that share no language, and gives meaning to a war without end. To the faithful, it is salvation. To the state, it is control. And to the galaxy, it is the voice of an empire that will not die quietly. Voxel disengaging. Data archived. Transmission terminated.